started, so we're going to just go ahead and get started. My name is Vivian Bickledge. For those of you that I've not yet had the opportunity to meet, it's a pleasure, and I'm so grateful for everyone being here this evening. Everyone got in touch with me, or they registered with the Pat Conroy Literary, which was fantastic. And so I've got a running list here based on when I got feedback or when you came in. And I'll try to give you the first 3 readers and then go from there. And again, if you're not reading, I'd appreciate if you would be on mute. I'll be doing that myself. I also have a little thing here that says 15 seconds because this is a 3-minute read. So when I do this, I'll be on mute, but you'll, that's a clue. And I'm not I hate to use this word actually, but I'm not the MC Nazi, for lack of a better word. I mean, I'm not going to be like, that's it. But if you go over 2 minutes, that's just plain rude, frankly. So you got, 3.5 minutes, whatever. But, if you take up 5, that's not super cool. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right. So welcome. Our first reader this evening is Doris Wright. And Doris, if you could just tell us at least the genre that you're reading from and the title and get us started, that would be terrific.
This is an excerpt from my novel Cabbage Head. And this little piece I'm calling A Perfect Match. And so I'm ready. Oh, novel, genre, whatever. Should I go?
Yes, please.
Okay. A perfect match. In every aspect of his life, Bradley was an observer, a participant only when the instructions were clear, the responsibilities limited, the risks few, and when success from any venture promised to draw no attention to himself. Wanting neither spotlight nor limelight, he preferred the nebulous haze that wraps around those that never speak up, contradict, lead, or crack a joke. And now, no longer young, though not quite old, he was contentedly nondescript and wished, whenever possible, to be left alone. He had done well in school, primarily because he couldn't bear the notoriety of failure. While interested in botany, he was more comfortable around plants and trees than people. His mother vetoed it as a major. Business, it was decided, was the way to go. When Callie showed interest in him, he was astonished. Not that there hadn't been girls. He was, after all, almost handsome, reasonably bright, and moderately athletic. But while he was surprised by the attention, he came to understand that it was misdirected. They had assumed that still waters run deep, when in truth, such waters are murky, containing little to sustain life. In time, these girls floated away. Later, Bradley had trouble remembering their names and even their faces. But Callie was different. Bradley could not help but notice her. As she walked to classes, she was often the center of a buzzing knot of boys with her deep bell-like laugh chiming above the drone. She was brilliant, beautiful, charming, and funny and outgoing. She was perfect. They had been friendly in a casual way, but Bradley never asked her out, certain that she was out of his league. And then he received the letter. She had heard he was going on to get his MBA and would be at the same school that she planned to attend. Bradley studied the envelope. It was indeed addressed to him. Feeling obliged to act, he sent her a postcard saying, "Good to hear from you. See you in the fall. Sincerely, Bradley." She followed with long, chatty letters. He responded with postcards, each a photo of the county courthouse. A month later, she showed up at his house saying she just happened to be in town. After exchanging pleasantries with his mother, she asked if he would like to play miniature golf. They took her car, she beat him, and they played again. She won again. She drove him home, and when he was about to leave the car, the words, "See you in September," almost out of his mouth, she leaned over and kissed him. He could not identify her scent. It was light, though earthy and seductive. It reminded him of the smell of grass after a rain. By Christmas, they were engaged. It was her idea, of course, but it seemed like a reasonably good one to Bradley. It kept him from having to come up with a plan of his own. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Doris. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you for guys. That's really important. Thank you.
There we go.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right, Susan Madison, please. And please remember to mute your mics because we're hearing paper. And so please, please, please. Welcome back, Jonathan. Hey, Arthur, I can't tell if you're muted. So just a heads up on that. And it's down in the left-hand corner. You just hit that. So next we have Susan Madison. Please let us know, what title and genre, and take it away, please.
Hello. This is a poem, and the name of it is Creatives. We are creatives. Sometimes our ego fills us with power, and we bare our chests, square our shoulders, and declare our gifts without fear. Or we look for accolades in yellow newspaper clippings, Google searches, fans, or from loved ones, only to become lethargic from the praise. We are creatives. Whether we ascribe to being unbelieving atheists, undecided agnostics, dunked in the water Baptists, or chanting Buddhists, we sit in invisible rooms and receive words, colors, and moves from light years away. We are creatives. Like a child picking the scab off of a healing wound to examine the flesh below, we peel back our life's stories, open our Pandora boxes, and dig out skeletons that were in storage in order to write, paint, dance, sing, or sculpt. Emotions are never wasted on us. Instead, we victimize ourselves, turning our losses into songs, paintings, or stories. We are creatives. In our minds, while waiting for the traffic to move, we jump off of bridges to have a what-if moment for a movie scene. We choke coworkers during Monday morning meetings, seduce the unwanted, and smoke cigarettes during church services. We are creatives. We wake reluctantly, cringing at the sight of light, the source of our calling that beckons us to create. Ours is not an easy assignment. It cripples, heals, lifts, despairs, and emboldens us. Like the river that constantly seeks the mouth of its mothers, we are always searching for the unknown. We are the victims of the sun and captives of the moon. Some of us break free from the cycle of the rhythm of nature and become prolific. Most of us don't and never will. Yet when we do rise and hit our peaks, we know the joy of what is unreachable, and we are satisfied if just for a moment. We are creatives.
Yay, yay. That was beautiful. I forgot to announce this is April, and it's Poetry Month this month. So thanks very much, Susan, for kicking us off on some very beautiful poetry this evening. Thank you. Next up, we have Jane Addams, and I don't know if you're reading poetry or short story, Jane, so take it away, and we'll look forward to hearing it.
I am reading poetry. I am reading poetry tonight. And this is called An Ode to an American Warrior. It was written last year after returning from a military funeral for a Lance Corporal whose birthday is March. This particular Lance Corporal would have been 73 this month. So this is for him. Two ramrod Marines march in perfect cadence, turn slowly, and again, salute us, and unfurl the flag, one layer after another. They hold it full before us as if to shield us from the sight of the rifles that return their salute. As if to say the loss is so great, it can only be glimpsed through a veil. The shock of the noise brings instant tears to our eyes. And for a moment, we sense in your skin the first horror of battle. The clap of gunshot, shell casings hit the ground, gunpowder smoke drifts. The bugle notes fade, our muffled cries the only sound. We survived another day, but you've left us, gone to see what lies ahead. Stunned by the shock of your departure, we stand silent, not knowing what to do. Brothers in arms, refold the flag, present the colors, salute, turn, and lift you in white gloved hands. They mount the hill, placing you gently to rest in a white granite wall. Somber echo of a black wall where you knelt to mourn your friends. We climb the hill for one last touch, running fingers over the engraved letters of your name and credo etched below. One by one, we pause to read the words you lived. Semper Fi, always faithful. In every way, you were the most steadfastly faithful of us all. Broken and wounded by that awful war, you stooped and lifted many others, as broken as you, on your broad and patient shoulders, giving them hope to carry on. Farewell, good soldier. Godspeed, true friend. Yours now the hard-earned joy of peace forever.
That was fabulous, Jane. And yeah, you did mention that. That was fabulous. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
A little somber for an April day.
I think our moods are going like this and for so many reasons. So thank you very much. Yeah. June Labazon is a poet, and June, would you like to give us a quick introduction and go ahead, please?
Okay, well, last year on Facebook, I asked people to just throw me a line. And so they threw me lines, and one line that I got was the big oak tree at the end of the road. So I've been working on this piece for a little while. The big oak tree at the end of the road appears to be standing guard over the morning gown of sunlight. It looks as mean as a hornet, intensified by the velvet ribbons of moss hanging from its branches. The end of the road is now a 4-lane highway. It looms imposingly, giving the hint to those who travel down that road that they are still in the majestic South, the South of mint juleps and lovers and a time gone by. I see this tree every day as I rush to my destination. I rarely have the time to think about it. Some days I don't think I even notice it. But today, I asked the Uber driver to pull to the side of the road in front of the tree. He is reluctant, but an extra $10 bill pushed toward his hand is the incentive for him to indulge my insanity. I breathe softly as I study its trunk through the glass window of the car. The barrier separating the tree from the highway is too high for me to jump. The moss is draped to the ground. It looks prissy and foolish, standing there by itself, old and thick, beckoning of times gone by. Nothing remains of the farmlands or fields which was once its home. It looks neglected and sad, forgotten, left behind when the 18th century became the 21st. The oak trees in New Orleans were filled with stinging caterpillars that dropped to the ground during the late spring. My daughter and I used to hop over them as we walked from her school to the bus stop. Once we weren't so successful, and one stung her. There was pain and tears and salve and fear. For 1 month in the late spring, oak trees were to be avoided. I imagine that this oak tree at the end of this road may also have caused pain and fear and tears, and was something to be avoided during a time when this tree may have been a vehicle for sinister evil things. But I try not to think about that as I sit in that Uber contemplating Billie Holiday crooning in my head. The Uber driver holds out his hand and barks to me that if I want to stay any longer, I will have to pay him more. Because for him, time is money. For this oak tree, time has stood still. I think the driver is irreverent. I know the street has stories to tell if we would just stop and listen. It could become my muse if I let it. I ache into the longing of my imagination as the driver emerges back onto the road. That's it.
Thank you, June. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. Real quick, I think my only person that's not on, there he is. Thank you, Arthur. You were on mute or you're not. We hear you coughing once in a while. So if you can mute, that would be terrific.
I'm hitting you.
Now I don't. You're good. There, yeah, you're good there. Okay, so Martha Weeks, you're our next reader, please.
Okay, am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay, this is just a little essay, so I think you'll get the point very quickly. Grief is a hard-hitting word that describes the emotional state we suffer following the gut punch when someone we love passes away. I felt it first when my father died. I was 13, he was 52. My 45-year-old mother was left with 6 children, the youngest 6 weeks old. By the grace of God and our steadfast mother's lead, we 6 siblings made it to adulthood while mother aged graciously. In her 96th year, she danced with us New Year's Eve. I figured she'd make it to 100. Again, God had other plans. 3 weeks later, I got the call. No, was my immediate response. Mama, 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 I repeated tearfully throughout my 5-hour drive to Atlanta. Why hadn't I visited her that weekend instead of the previous one? If only, I thought to myself over and over. When I arrived at her home, I put down my things, then went to her bedroom and stared at her big 4-poster bed. Scenarios made her final moments went through my mind. While my sister handled funeral details, I stared at the obvious. Mama's beautiful apartment had to be dismantled. Where to start? An assortment of handbags lay on the chaise lounge by the window, perhaps one for church that very morning, a service she didn't make. At least now I had a pleasant place to begin. By twos, I took the purses from the closet and placed them on the bed. Since its contents rarely changed, her wallet must have experienced a sort of Gulliver's Travels as it went from purse to purse, depending on the occasion, the season, or the style required. You know how certain smells remind you of people? Mama was Joy by Jean Patou. To open one of Mama's purses was to get a whiff of heaven. A pretty lacy hanky with her scent was in every handbag. I held fragile cotton and lace to my nose. That was my mother, as sure as her natural white streak that foretold her hair color in later years. Mother never cared for sweets, but whether to sweeten coffee breath or assuage a church cough, there was always one wrapped candy-striped mint. Though never a chocolate lover, she was an avid bridge player, which explained her handful of rectangular chocolates I found in one purse that were wrapped in foil printed with jacks, queens, and kings. Some women have beautiful long tapered fingers, but not Mama. Her hands were tools that diapered babies, soothed sunburns, made cheese straws and pulley candy, and scratched backs. Not one for manicures. She did her nails when necessary. So each purse contained either an orange emery board or a metal nail file. If the purse had a pocket, it usually contained a little mirror or a tube of lipstick. Oh dear, my computer's getting ready to die, y'all. I love Mama's red Revlon lips. International, I believe, though Fire Engine Red rings a bell. She was never without her lipstick. And matchbooks, most all of hers, which were perfectly intact, from the Piedmont Driving Club and the Capital City Club in Atlanta, and from restaurants where she'd gone with friends. One had matches from the old cloister at Sea Island, Georgia, where she used to play in bridge tournaments. Mother didn't keep journals. She collected matchbooks. Ever prepared to jot down things of interest, Mama carried a pen or mechanical pencil and compact notepads in which she wrote down prayers, recipes, quotes, and facts she'd heard and wanted to remember. I even found the receipt from the last time she had taken me and several siblings to a Mexican restaurant for dinner. And always there were Crane calling cards, ivory colored. In one purse, I found a little white rock with her name hand painted on it in black. That token remains a mystery, but another one became predictable. My superstitious mother had, without fail, at least one buckeye, the lucky brown nut of a buckeye tree, in every purse. Mother never stepped on a crack, walked under a ladder, or went opposite her walking mate around an object for fear of crossing that person later. Yet, superstition aside, she remembered the day a voice from above told her, "Follow me," and she did. I spent several hours exploring and arranging those purses. When I stepped back, I smiled. The heavy weight of sorrow had lightened somewhat.
Thanks, Martha.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Beautiful.
That's gorgeous, Martha.
thank
Absolutely
you.
gorgeous.
Thank you. I'm gonna go get my electronics so I can keep plugged in. I'll be back.
That's good. Okay, well then we'll be followed with Catherine Tandy Brown, please.
Yes, yes. I'm going to read two poems. One is very short and funny. The first one is short and funny, I hope. That's the plan. And the second one is longer. All right, the first one is called Structure. Bless me, Lord, for I have written 15 poems by which I'm smitten. All are rhymed with no free verse. Thoughts all structured, phrases terse. Will my fellow poets laugh when they read my epitaph if it flows with flower and rhyme? Sentimental paradigm. E. Cummings used no caps, so I will stick to rhymes that snap. That's it. The second poem is entitled Carolina Elegy. Geese fly veed on harvest moon. I'm longing for the nights of June when fireflies winked and your guitar filled my senses and the star of north shone brightest in the sky above the dipper, while the sigh of evening waves on sandy shore chimed in with katydid's encore and tree frogs chirped from live oak bark to further animate the dark. The moon was quartered, air so damp and soft and salty. Round the lamp, cecropias danced, their shadows cast like pterodactyls from the past upon the lacy curtain sheer. The porch swing creaked as you swung near and back to far, while on the air an acrid polecat, my feet bare, slid through dust while rocking. Chair kept time to clock tick-tocking. Lazily the coon pup yawned and dreamed of chasing as his pawn a slow raccoon, soon to be treed. His legs ran in his sleep with speed he'd yet to achieve when wide awake. If only time would never break that summer spell your songs entwined around my heart, but now the shine of moon on snow brings back the present. Cornstalks glow on iridescent lunar landscape. Ocean's waves leave icy crust. I cannot stave the chill within my heart that you bequeathed me when you died a few days into fall, this golden year of our enchantment. Can you hear my cries of grief as high you ride upon the moon? Oh, to your side I long to go. Please wait for me and we will two-step easily and tango across the Milky Way, then waltz atop the ocean spray and pirouette from star to star. Fay love, I'll follow where you are.
Ooh, well, love. Very neat poem.
Thank you.
Wow.
Rhymey.
Wow. I'm not very good at rhymes, so that was fabulous, Catherine. That was
Thank you. I appreciate that.
very well woven. Followed by another poet, Emily Davis Fletcher. And Emily is was actually leading an online workshop that begins on April 14th for 3 sessions. And I understand that is sold out. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Emily.
Thank you.
That's-
Thank you. Thank you
welcome.
to you and Catherine and Jonathan for promoting it. So
You're welcome. You're
hugely-
welcome.
hugely helpful. And this poem I'm going to read is going to be in, I think, Low Country Weekly. And I just want to say to everyone to make sure you check Low Country Weekly out online throughout the month. I don't know exactly when they'll have their next issue, but right now their latest issue has poetry from Susan and Catherine. Who else? I don't know. I'm blanking. Oh,
Carolyn. Carolyn.
Quitman, Carolyn, yes, Carolyn and Quitman. And then there's several other poets in here that will have poems in throughout the month online. So just wanted to give a heads up about that. And this poem is, so this should be in there, and it's titled Marsh Tide Yield. And I co-wrote it with somebody, Azan Suar. All right. Purple flames of Spartina grass, nod for your hand. Delicate to not trip the marsh of the mind. Did you turn off the stove, delaying orbit to the mundane? A pair of redheads, woodpeckers kiss through pine, while I bend like an acrobat, bury my face in sunflowers, narrow-leaved, a pose that defies our hesitations. Seeds underground taste smoke where we stand, so still the embers may sprout onto our toes. Terceau, terceau, you laugh and brush away ants that bite like patience. I want to touch each bite that should have been, carry the sugar and sting of you on my tongue. The bees in your eyes sensing, buzzing that ripples my blood, shakes a heron loose from his shadow, and sends all our small birds fluttering like paper, on fire with the words, you'll love again.
Fabulous.
Very nice.
That's fabulous.
Thank you.
Very nice,
Thank you.
Emily. Very nice.
Yeah, terrific. Okay, thanks. Ellen Kelly, hi, how are you? I know, you're up, so welcome. Susan's waving at you, so I'm gonna go on mute and you can take it away.
Oh, I didn't know I was reading. Okay, because I didn't sign up with you. But okay,
Oh.
I can read something fast.
Okay, cool, okay. Okay, but she's gone, so okay, there she
No,
is.
okay.
Okay.
This is a poem. It's called Chase Street Park. A chain link fence, protector of the elementary school from the same family name, guides us on gray dual sidewalks, cracks filled with pollen, dry leftover leaves twisted with stray cat fur, to our playground path. Park entry sign opens to sparse lawns woven with eucalyptus roots, collarbones of thin old women. Frame the silver gymnast rings and parallel bars in the adult sandbox, where George, our local muscle man, displays his talent. Bronze muscles gleam, black suspenders support dull white leggings. Jesus of Nazareth performs iron crosses, spouts shit, shit, shit after a lost grip. His young audience scatters, our laughter trails behind the blue rusted industrial-sized dumpsters, while the performer shakes sand from his sweaty cropped locks. Before he rechalks his palms, we kids find safety, dotting distant bleachers, await a warm-up, noshing Bazooka Joe. That's it.
Thank you, Ellen. That was great. It had a little Holy Thursday flair going on there tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
Detected California.
I put you right on the spot and you came through. So thanks for sharing. I didn't mean to do that to you.
No, that's okay. It's okay.
Okay. I have Jeff Baker on my lineup, but I don't see Jeff. So I'll just put a little star here. Maybe next time we'll have that opportunity. Brooke, you're our next runner-up after, so welcome and introduce yourself. Let us know what you're going to read, please.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, everybody. I'm Brooke, the new addition to the Pat Conroy Center. So thanks for letting me read. I'm going to read 2 short poems. The first one is called Boat Picture, You and Me. I wrote it after I came across an old photograph of me and my stepfather. Boat picture, you and me. You're letting me drive the boat just this once. I'm steering. You're holding a plastic cup of worms, a smile growing beneath your sunglasses, a gold necklace dangling from your neck, the one my mother gave you. We were not sure of one another, like stray dogs who met in the alley. Unwanted, not really interested. I'm squinting my eyes, the sun pouring into them like the idea of you being my father. I'd say it could have been good by looking at this photo. The water waited for us every fishing trip. Vietnam waited for you beneath that water, shadows you meditated on for hours. A cigarette danced between your lips, rolling from one corner to the other. Love was something the world snatched from your hands, as if you were a child holding something you couldn't have. War never ends, but I'm still confused why this photo is the only time we ever loved one another. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with this picture. I'm keeping it. Okay. And one more. I'm going to read The Glass Jar Blues. I keep an animal in a glass jar. You can see it rocking around, searching for air or one small wind. I have poked holes in the top so it can breathe, or just rise to the idea of breathing. I put leaves in the jar to make love exist, and a stick so that it has hope to climb out of its infinite pain. There is enough water to crown the bottom of the jar so it may wet its feet, and there is a rock so it can sit and think. Anything trapped needs a place to think. I watch it struggle every day trying to escape. I walk over to comfort it, tapping my finger on the glass, saying things like, "It's going to be fine. I know you are not happy, but you are safe."
Wow. Thank you. Welcome, Brooke. That was great. Thank you very much. The next person I have on the list is Estelle Ford Williamson, who I don't see on the call this evening. Just a heads up for those of you that are interested in writing memoir or have dabbled in a little bit, want to learn a little bit more, Estelle will be hosting an online workshop through the Pat Conroy Center as well. And that will, the first session, I think it's a 2-session workshop, and it begins on April the 25th. So if you have an interest in memoir or, approaching it from a different direction, please visit the Pat Conroy Center site and sign up. With that, I have Carolyn. Carolyn, pronounce your last name for me. Jarusek? Oh, I know you're muted. No problem. Oh, there we are. Jarusek. Thank you, Carolyn. So welcome and take it away.
Okay. This is a poem, and I was inspired by watching the tide out at the end of Pigeon Point, and I wrote it like in one afternoon on my cell phone. So it's called Quiet Tide. Oh, quiet tide, your surface ruffled by the morning breeze. Ripples dazzle and dance. Marsh grass bows to you with grace, while floating leaves and things submerged slip by secretly in the power of your flow. Oh, quiet tide, rushing rivulets purge rich clouds of softened silt into your lazy, lingering current, blending life and death in the broth of new creation. Life seethes along your edges as you recede. Sunlight warms busy fiddlers' backs. Pluff bud pops and oysters squirt, a juicy succulence shorebirds savor. A world of air and wind and sun and sky. A world of water, dense and deep, share a surface as they surge. Two worlds that thrive in parallel, abiding by their separate laws, with give and take between the two in balance and respect. Oh, quiet tide, a gift to me, the wisdom that comes with the knowing that the cycle begins again, the back and forth and back again, the in and out and in again. Water shares the rhythm of my breath, a second chance, a fresh start, a return home in the soft surrender to each quiet tide. Thank you.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. Yep, that was really beautiful.
That's pure low country. Pure low country. Very
Yeah.
nice.
I don't know about you guys, but for some reason, all of a sudden, I don't feel so isolated, right? That was fabulous. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Williams, John Williams, welcome. And we're ready for your contribution this evening.
Am I off mute? No.
You are off mute. You're good to go.
Well, it says mute.
Well, don't always, oh, now you're muted. Now you're muted. Now you're not.
All right. Okay, we're good. All right, this is a section from my novel, Too High in the Wind, which is a suspense / romance or strong romance subplot. And it's where the two pro-protagonists, I guess, or co-protagonists meet. They're both teachers, and this is after their first day of school, not when the kids were there, but when the teachers were coming in preparatory and that sort of stuff. Okay, here goes. He walked over to the blackboard and wrote his name. It looked strange. Mr. Forrest was his father. He erased it and wrote it again, neater, larger, carefully forming each letter. He was a natural scribbler. Neatness required concentration. He didn't hear the door open behind him, and he jumped when she spoke. "You write quite nicely," Becca said, then added, "for a man." "Thanks," he said. He turned to face her. "It's easier than driving." "Safe for two," she said, "and it's gender neutral." She glanced around. "Just thought I'd drop by and see how your day went." Her voice was relaxed, like that of an old friend accustomed to dropping by at the end of the day, like the past 2 days hadn't happened. "I'm okay," he answered. "I started from scratch, but I got a lot done. Thursday's D-Day, though. I just hope I'm ready. Bet you could start tomorrow." "Probably," she said. "I had a bunch of stuff ready, so I had a head start. Those boxes you attacked held more than clothes." She gave the room a quick look and slid past him. "Now let's see what you've been up to." She walked slowly along the wall, her hands behind her back, examining each map and picture. "You're very innovative," she said when she reached the end. "I never could get into history. It's just so," she paused for the right word, "extraneous," she finally said, "like it doesn't matter anymore." "It's the second time I've heard that today," he said, "and I'm surprised to hear it from you." "Why me?" "Because you teach literature, and most great literature is based on history." She turned to face him. "Well, Messrs. Dickens, Hawthorne, and Melville might disagree with you, but go ahead and make your case." "Well," he said, "my first exhibit would be War and Peace, followed by all of Shakespeare's histories. Then there's," "What's your favorite history?" she asked, cutting him off. Her tone was challenging, questioning, like that of a professor doubting the depths of a student's knowledge. "Henry IV." He paused to elaborate, but she fired another question. "Favorite character?" "Falstaff." "Why?" "Hey, Ince, I already passed English Lit. Did you learn anything?" "A lot, mainly about English teachers. They're a serious group." She smiled and her tone relaxed. "So this between us, why'd you like Falstaff?" "Well, first of all, he's funny, even if you sort through all that archaic language. That means old, by the way. To be precise, it means old-fashioned." She walked towards him, her hand still behind her back, reminding him of a drill instructor ready to pounce on a recruit. "What else?" "Well, he's every soldier of every war, afraid, not filled with lofty ideas about God and country, just an ordinary guy trying to do his job the best he can and not let his buddies down." "Have you read War and Peace?" "Last summer. It was my beach read, though I'm not up for a quiz. Those Russian names give me fits." She laughed. "That's okay. you've already passed. And besides, JR has taken me out to Fripp Island. He lives there and it's close and very safe. You have to go through a security gate to get on the island. JR said there's a condo near him that I might be able to rent. She checked her watch, got to scoot. She twirled around and sped towards the door. See you tomorrow, she said over her shoulder. That's it. I know I'm out of time.
No, John, that was fabulous. John, that was fabulous. I'm so glad that you're doing this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivian.
Thank you. Yeah, really great. All right, Mr. Hudson, welcome. You were on early, so we're glad to have you, and I'll go back on mute and take it away.
All right. This is the introduction to a longer piece I call Wrestling with Spirit. It's, I guess you could call it theological. 15 years ago, when our son Will was in his first year of graduate school at the University of California, Kate and I rented a backyard artist studio in Berkeley for the holidays. It was tiny, but enough. A bathroom, a simple kitchenette, a sleeping loft for Kate and me, couches and the floor for the 3 boys. The day before Christmas was warm, clear, and bright, perfect weather for an excursion. We drove the 101, the Redwood Highway, several hours north to the quaint village of Mendocino, where we walked the trails in the seaside park and ate lunch on the rocks at the water's edge. Returning, we took the coast road, the Pacific Coast Highway, a highway in name only, the slower scenic route. It follows a narrow coastal plain crowning the bluffs that rise hundreds of feet above the turquoise water below. Where creeks and rivers empty into the sea, it drops down into ravines forested with redwood and Douglas fir, and then winds back up out of them. Cattle graze on the grassy plain, oblivious to its beauty. Where steep ridges intrude on the plain, shrinking it to nothing, the road hugs the edge of the cliff, and passengers on the ocean side lean away instinctively. All along the coast, giant pillars of hard stone stand in the sea, just yards from the shore. Sea stacks, they're called, buffeted by wind and waves, stubbornly resisting their eventual demise. By late afternoon, the sea breeze that has been blowing all day kicks up waves that crash against the stacks, sending spray skyward. Falling, it washes in a froth of white around their feet. We pass through tiny seaside villages that date to the lumber boom of the late 19th century, Elk, Manchester, and Fish Creek. We passed the lighthouse at Point Arena, drove through the horsey community of Sea Ranch, and 60 miles and 2 hours later, just north of Jenner, where the Russian River empties into the Pacific, we pulled over on the side of the road, got out of the car, and looked back at the coastline that swept in a long arc to the north of us. In the foreground, a barbed wire fence. Beyond it, pasture, its grass now green in the rainy season, bending in the moist, salt-filled sea breeze. Beyond the pasture, the sharp edge of the cliffs and a shoreline rimmed with white as far as we could see. 30 miles to Point Arena, further to the King Ridge Mountains of the Lost Coast, north of Mendocino, 70 miles, 80 perhaps. A pair of ravens soared on the updraft above the cliff face, croaking with contentment, and on the water, waves rolled from the west, one after another, huge curling giants rising from an unimaginable distance. And all this in the warm light of late afternoon that paints the world with vibrancy. I stood transfixed, in awe of the scene. I was sure I had never seen anything so beautiful. You have felt that. What is it at the core of the awe and wonder you feel at the depth of a canyon, the vastness of a sea, the height of a mountain, the color of sky, late afternoon light, a sunset, a birth? In his 1836 essay, Nature, Ralph Waldo Emerson, the transcendentalist, says, quote, "In the tranquil landscape, and especially in the distant line of the horizon, man beholds something as beautiful as his own nature," end quote. Do we share something fundamental with the rest of creation? what spirit moves us? That's it.
That's a lot. Thank you, David. Thank you very much. Took us to a whole nother side of the country there. That was terrific. That was terrific.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wilbanks, I scolded you earlier. I apologize. You went on mute very politely. Thank you. There you are. So,
unlike John, when it says mute, I says unmute, and I was confused. Anyway.
You're great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, take it away.
Okay. My screenplay is Mr. Boatwright. Jake Boatwright is a terminally ill Marine veteran who extorts money from a war profiteering company executive. His mission is to remove millions of unexploded cluster bombs that still remain after the Vietnam War. The scene I'm going to read happens in Jake's garage. He's just departing the garage to get in his car and drive to the Home Depot. And he's leaving his daughter and her older boyfriend. And this starts with David, the boyfriend. David, I'm not sure, but I don't think your father was overjoyed to meet me. Elaine is relaxed and reassuring. Don't worry, Daddy scares most people when they first see him. He can frighten them until they get to know him. David, now that you mention it, your dad has one of those faces you wouldn't want to confront. He reminds me of that tough-looking actor, Danny Trejo. He's right out of Central Casting as the villain. Elaine is amused, proud her father is hyper-masculine. Elaine, oh, you know, my father's great-grandfather was a Comanche Indian chief. His name was Iron Jacket. David, well, that would explain it. The Comanches were the most dominant and feared of all the Indian tribes. I think your dad inherited Iron Jacket's face. Elaine, I think that's so cool. The next scene is the interior of the Home Depot plumbing accessories area. Jake walks back and forth searching for the perfect toilet seat. Fred, 70, a likable part-time worker, enjoys assisting customers with advice. Fred, can I help you find something, sir? Jake, I need to replace a toilet seat. Jesus, how many different ones do you have? Jake is slightly overwhelmed by the enormous selection as he continues pacing up and down the aisle. Fred, oh, we have a shitload to choose from. Fred, thinking he's made a funny joke, smiles at Jake, who has a blank stare. Jake, oh, good. Yeah, shitload. You're a funny guy. Fred senses Jake is not amused by his comedy shtick. He doesn't want to have any problems with this man who looks like he's about to hit someone. Fred, well, sir, the most important decision you need to make is, do you need a round or an oval seat? It's necessary to fit the toilet correctly. Jake blinks his eyes and thinks, I think it's round. I never gave it much thought, even though I sat on the little bastard for years. Fred, where Jake does have a sense of humor, is relieved. Sir, you can return it if it doesn't fit. You know, just make sure you don't use it, if you know what I mean. Jake appreciates Fred's advice and plumbing supply wit. Jake, okay, you're a funny guy, and that's good. That's nice. I'll take it. This round one, and let's see what happens. The next scene is exterior parking lot. It's filled with rows of similar looking cars and trucks. It's cloudy with a light drizzle. Jake finds himself outside, searching for his car. He suddenly can't remember what he was driving or where he parked. His eyes dart back and forth with slight panic. He walks around completely lost. Fred's shift is over. He walks over to his car. Then he spots Jake. Hey, my friend, I thought you'd be home by now, changing out that new toilet seat. And that's it for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Arthur. That was fun. That was really fun. I did you a disservice at the beginning. It's a screenplay, correct?
Right. It's a screenplay.
Right. We should have introduced it as such. So I'm sure everybody followed along just fine. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
We love the toilet seat. That was very well written.
Okay.
Barb, you're up next, please. Barb Bausch. Yep.
Okay. This is a part of a short story called Wanted. Are you? My parents said you are. What's it like? I stared briefly at different sets of eyes, all about my age, 10, and all living within a few houses from me. Feeling my heart begin to pound against my ribcage, I turned for home without answering. My feet made it to the first of 5 long stairs. I could hear their footsteps on my heels and feel their breath after each word. Huh? Answer us. That seems weird. We're just wondering what it's like. I felt scared, not of them, but what I would do to them if I turned around. I made it to our wrought iron gate before I delivered my response. At least I know I'm wanted and not a mistake. Can you say the same thing, Johnny? How about you, Mary? Mikey? Why don't you go ask your parents that question? I was proud of my comeback and wasn't waiting for an answer. I saw the look on their faces. They were stymied enough to ingest my question and bring it back home to their parents. I could only wonder what conversation they had among themselves and what parents were involved in this to fuel this inquiry towards me. My sisters weren't around to ask, and I don't know if anything like this had happened to them yet. Are you okay? What are those kids doing out there in the front yard? Mom asked as the front door shut abruptly behind me. Yeah, I'm okay. They're just being idiots. They're trying to get something from me that isn't theirs, and I told them to leave. I wasn't going to let them talk about my parents and act as if I was some type of freak. All I knew was that my parents loved me and my sisters and brought us home from the hospital like any other kid in the neighborhood. Mom must have heard some of what was going on out front because she said wanted and loved. That is you and your sisters. We asked for children to love and you answered our call. You are our chosen. We are your parents and together we make one beautiful family. I think I was around 6 when I first heard those words explaining what adopted meant. Now adopted felt about as relevant as my middle name. I knew that I had one. Hardly anyone knew what it was, and it was mainly used for official documents. Come with me to mail these letters, Mom said. I loved going to the post office because they had bars on the stairs that kids my size could play on while their parents were inside. I could feel myself getting too big for this activity, so I headed inside behind my mom. Look, Mom, they are wanted too. I pointed at the photos hanging behind a glass case in the post office. I don't see any children in these pictures. When do we get our photos in there? My mom had a puzzled look on her face as she turned to the glass case, and then she broke out into a chuckled smile. I would prefer that none of you ever have your photos in this case. That is a different kind of wanted, and I'll tell you the difference when we get back in the car. Why don't you take a look at the new stamps they have coming out for Christmas while you're here? Tell me which one you'd like for our cards this year. That's it for now.
Very nice. Thank you, Barb. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah.
Good dialogue.
Yeah, very good. Brad, I don't know if we've met before. It's a pleasure to meet you. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about what Brad Beck, what you're going to read. And I'll go on mute and you can come off mute. There you go. Perfect.
Well, Vivian, I wasn't really prepared. I didn't have anything tonight, but I promise next time I will.
Okay. Very, very good. I didn't mean to put, I'm doing this a lot. I apologize for putting you on the spot, but thanks for being here.
That's okay. It's a pleasure. I really enjoy it. Thanks for pulling this together.
You're welcome. Jonathan was the impetus, so I'm just the voice. Yeah.
You're doing well.
Okay, nice to meet you. Karen, did you want to read, or Karen Witter? You're just, okay. All right, well then you're stuck with me before Jacqueline is our featured writer. And what I have here is a condensed version of my whatever column that'll be published next week online, since we're not having a hard copy. So this is, again, a condensed version. It's called Songs of Defiance. John Prine is dead. I never met John, but I loved him. He wrote and sang Sam Stone, Hello in There, and Angel from Montgomery, among many, many other songs. His voice wasn't sweet, it was real. And lung cancer didn't take his life, COVID did. When I learned he was in the ICU in Nashville with the virus, I'd check in online to learn his status. I was awake and writing at 2 a.m. when a news feed lit my laptop screen to inform me that the celebrated singer-songwriter had passed. Prine died on April 7th when the moon was full and pink and super. In my quest to stay busy, I moved from one undertaking to the next. I've learned how to host Zoom meetings. I made Eastern nut bread for the first time ever, a family tradition that immigrated to the United States in the mind of my Lithuanian grandmother sometime in the early 20th century. I've organized toolboxes, power washed the backyard deck, and scrubbed the roof of the parked RV. I've hand washed an American flag in hot water, separating yellow-green pollen from the red, white, and blue fabric. The flag, submersed under dissolving soap bubbles, reminded me of our nation, drowning in a bath of bewilderment. Every morning, and I mean every morning, a Carolina wren sits atop my brown plastic Adirondack chair and sings his heart out. His throat swells in a burst of creamy white feathers with each note. He sings into the woods as live oak flowers fall from gigantic limbs stretching over my house and patio. I took time to learn more about the troubadour who pairs with his mate for the year, if not for life. Wrens sing in duets. They nest in the natural hollows of trees or stumps, old woodpecker holes, the crevices of fallen trees, or in the middle of a brush pile. I liken the wren's behaviors to what is taking place inside my house, nesting in the bedroom and foraging in the kitchen, but without the sonorous duets. John Prine's last album, The Tree of Forgiveness, was released in 2018. The irony of the album rests in his song, When I Get to Heaven. A few of John's lyrics. When I get to heaven, I'm going to shake God's hand, thank him for more blessings than one man can stand. And I'm going to get a cocktail, vodka and ginger ale. Yeah, I'm going to smoke a cigarette that's 9 miles long. And then I'm going to go find my mom and dad. John Prine has left the earth, but he got it right. He shakes God's hand during a time when touch feels extinct. He settles into heaven with his parents, sipping a vodka and ginger ale and puffing a 9-mile cigarette, joys unique to him. After the setting of April's pink moon, I still have Prine's music and the song of a backyard wren, small gifts of defiance to appease a soul sentenced to staying at home. That's it. Okay, thank you. All right, I love the silent applause. It's fabulous. Okay.
Your writing is like prose poetry. I have to say that. It's prose poetry.
Thank you, Jane. So for
That was
poetry,
beautiful. That was beautiful, Vivian.
Thanks, Brooke. Thank you. Okay, Jacqueline Markham is our featured poet this evening, featured writer. Hello down there, Jacqueline. Okay. Jacqueline has loved and written poetry since childhood. As a freshman in college, she decided to make a career of it. After her bachelor's degree in English, she earned a master's and doctorate in English and creative writing from Florida State University. Author of 2 chapbooks and a collection, she is published widely in literary journals, magazines, and anthologies. A recipient of numerous grants for literary merit and the Adele Mellon Prize for Distinguished Contribution to Scholarship, she has taught writing, literature, and women's studies in universities and in communities. After a brief sabbatical from her full-time professorship, she continues to teach online. Jackie believes deeply in the transformational power of poetry and has shared her work in many forms throughout her long career. Please welcome Jackie Markham, and thanks very much, Jackie, for being our featured poet for the month of April.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Just great, just great.
Okay, good. Thank you, Vivian, so much. And thank you, Jonathan, and all of you for coming tonight, and for all the poets and writers who help us keep sane, as well as the artists and the musicians. I wanted to start with a little bit of a slow, quiet flute to call what I call clearing the emotional palette. We've heard a lot of emotional things and a lot of different perspectives. On hearing Ave Maria on the radio today for my mother. What universe has time suspended between these strains on radio and those that skittered marble passageways that distant wedding day? Flute solos slipped through the house today, peel open images guarded since your death, like winter sun unwraps camellias, frost protected until vivid yellow centered whites and reds unfold petal after petal. Mother, hazel eyes, slightly tilted smile, moist imprints of red on cheeks and foreheads, the way you waltz so light my wedding night in brocade blue. Me, untouchable in my own cocoon of silk. Flute solos slip through the house today, momentarily a filament. As Vivian mentioned, I was to be the featured poet for Women's History, so I wanted to just give a nod and recognition to the Women's History Month, even though I'm very happy to also be the featured poet for National Poetry Month, because I love April for that reason. That was a mother poem, and I would also like to share a grandmother poem in recognition of Women's History. This poem comes from my little chapbook, and the reason I'm going to hold this up here, I'm going to get the right place here. This is the little China baby in a peanut shell that I'm going to be reading about, and this was the title of my thesis of a collection of poems, China Baby, in which I explored my Polish heritage through my mother's side. China Baby. The rotten egg smell of paper mills excited me. Manistee and Grandma's house. After Grandma's marshmallow skin hug came the China baby in a peanut shell tied with a ribbon. Untouchable in the china cabinet till Grandma brought it down. In later years, I remember her in a dining room spread with yellow light, oak table piled with newspapers and postcards and anything too good to throw away. She said rosaries and read Polish prayers, Jasny Postna for the poor. I heard when she was young, she washed and stretched other people's lace curtains, ironed organdy dresses for children not her own, and stemmed black cherries at the canning factory. No one talked about what happened to Grandpa, who left her and 6 children without a word. She must have searched in every stranger's face for the features in that oval portrait hanging in the closed-off room upstairs. They sold her house to pay the bills of dying, belongings sorted like a tug of war. Mother said, what's the use? After Grandma's routine caretaking, no one puts flowers on her grave. Now the China baby is in my china cabinet, and my sister's child peeks in with envious eyes. Thank you. I love all those little quiet. That's cute. Okay. I mostly write in more organic poetry, but every once in a while I do enjoy the traditional forms. And this next poem was inspired by something in the Cincinnati Museum, and it's a sonnet. It's called "The Mirror with No Image Found in a Museum Case." Of all relics, the mirror under glass attracts me. No image reflected here. Patina now darkens once polished brass, obscures reflections of 2,000 years. That could I penetrate, I could retrace the truth of women's lives this mirror knows. Did she dream of beauty or praise the face that she saw swimming in narcissus gold? Or did this sign of vanity rust green, woman vanished or died in childbirth, or revealed to an Egyptian queen each day's betrayal of her child's heart, until she looked no more and time sealed secrets that this mirror once revealed? Thank you. That's so cute. I love it. Okay, this next poem is a rondeau, which is another form, and it traditionally has 15 lines. It dates back to the 13th century, when it was actually a farm song, like the word we know as around, that had a refrain that goes around and around. It has come to the modern times with 15 lines, a quintet, a quatrain, and a sestet. So we've got 5, 4, 6. Now, as I said, I don't always write in forms, but sometimes it's a really nice way to engage your mind and think about different things. And this one, I'll dedicate this to Susan Madison, because we have a thing about moons, which I'm sure others of you do as well. The long night moon, rondeau. The long night moon and sea tides rise. The long night moon's glorious size floods the sea and vast savanna, golden glow on the campagna. Hypnotic, we follow coastwise. Opalescent moonbeams spill from the skies. On harbor river currents vapor rise, creating a magical arcana to meet the long night moon. Moonlight and river hypnotize us. Ocean pulls as tide rises. Beyond Spartina and manna grasses, pursuing nirvana, perfect union. Ocean rises to meet the long night moon. Okay. I'm not sure about my time, but I'll just plunge forward and read a few things that are a little more recent and more free-flowing. As some of you know, I always do the Poem a Day challenge, and I'm really enjoying it this year, since I'm only teaching like one course at a time. But every day we have a challenge, and you can do this through a variety of venues, but a lot of my poems come from that. This one, the prompt was blank thread, and it turned out to be hanging by a thread, which some of us might feel that way right now. I know I often do on day 25 in my house. Hanging by a thread. After she slipped from the tight wire without a safety net, 1,000 questions flipped through her mind. What type of thread is this? A thin strand of cotton homespun, nylon monofilament, or only a fuzzy piece of yarn? What would it take to right herself? Tightrope act. I'm hearing noises. Or would she sprout wings like a character in a Gabriel Garcia Marquez story, or transform to an airborne creature with wings of some space-age substance? To endure high-speed orbits around the Earth, or wax wings destined to melt if she flies too close to the sun? And the last two poems, thank you, Emily. The last two poems, I think, even more so relate to where we are today in this crisis. And this one's called Defense. It's kind of a list poem. A shield, a white light visualization, a chant, a basket of desert sage, an invocation to Athena, an imaginary bubble, a sword, a curse, a self-defense lesson, an escape route, an evacuation plan, an affirmation, a can of pepper spray, a positive outlook, a fear ritual, a spirit guide, a whistle, a knife, a gun, a mask, a prayer. I added that last line about the mask. Okay, my final poem was just this week on the 3rd of April. The prompt was to choose 10 words, any 10 words you want to choose. And then you go into a rhyming dictionary, add a lot of rhyming words to those 10 words and some similar sounds, and then use that word bank to write your poem. And I ended up with kind of my very first rap poem with all those similar sounds and those rhyming. It kind of became a rap song and a rap poem. It's called Pandemic. Pandemic crossed the ocean, the emotion and commotion calls on courage, holding light, can't take flight, can only act like a dervish in a flourish of motion, hoping for sleep and divine mercy, trying not to plunge too deep, holding fright in the night like a song with long, deep notes and sad words. Instead, evoke the moon energies and the sun, sleep deep and sweep, and somehow focus on upkeep, or frankly, we may end up in a heap, and that would be sad. Sit in the sun, hum and sing, play the flute with long blue notes that contrast with bright bird song. Maybe if we sing long enough, crows will rise out of the shadows and the alchemic effort will pay off. Here, a red, red rose flourishes, and who knows if divine mercy decrees, the pandemic will fade like a rose and loom in our minds only as a distant memory. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, thank you.
Hey, you guys can unmute now if you want to. That was really, that last one was crazy great.
Yeah, loved it.
It was, yes.
Jackie, wonderful. Really, really good.
Thanks, Emily. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah,
Fun
thank
stuff,
you.
everybody.
Thank you for reading.
Yeah, so it's a great night. Thank you for being here, Holland and Elizabeth. Thank you for coming as well. The next open mic, this is scary. You know, are we going to still be
So
here? Well, that's one way to say it. The next open mic is scheduled for May 14th, which is the second Thursday of next month. And God willing, it'll be at Common Ground. God willing, it'll be period, you know, one way or the other, it'll exist. And Jonathan, if you're cool with hosting us again via the Paul Conroy Center, then if it has to be an online gig, then we'll do it that way.
I'm happy to get us together any way we can. Tonight was fantastic. So thank you all so much for taking the trust fall with us. I know a lot of folks have not even been on Zoom before, but y'all were wonderful. It's really nice. Thank you so much.
Thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Vivian.
thank you. Do you have a
Wonderful
Thank you,
job,
Jonathan.
Master of Ceremony.